Welcome to Mindset and Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Mindset and Stone podcast. By the simple law of averages, assuming you live a relatively normal lifespan, you are going to perform one specific action about 670 million times before you die.
Wow, 670 million.
Right, 670 million. It is basically the most constant, repetitive, relentless action of your entire existence. But what if I told you that you are almost certainly doing it completely fundamentally wrong?
It's a staggering thought, isn't it? Treat breathing as this invisible automatic background process, like you inhale, you live, you stop, you die. And we assume that because it happens on autopilot, our bodies just naturally know how to do it perfectly. But the reality is that breathing is intensely complex, and the mechanisms behind it are actually incredibly fragile.
And we somehow manage to break those mechanisms on a daily basis without even realizing it. So that is our mission for this deep dive. We are exploring the really fascinating research compiled in James Nestor's book, Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art.
Such a great book.
It really is. We're going to unpack how modern humans somehow became the absolute worst breathers in the entire animal kingdom. Plus, we'll uncover the hidden superpowers literally sitting right in the middle of your face.
Yeah, the nose is amazing.
Totally. And we'll show how simply changing the way air enters and exits your body can radically transform your health, your weight, and your longevity.
So before we even begin pulling this apart, I want you, the listener, to just notice your own breath right now.
Yeah, pay attention to it.
Right, don't try to correct it, just observe it. Are your lips slightly parted? Is your jaw tense? Is the breath fast and sitting high up in your chest? Or is it, slow and deep in your stomach?
Just take a mental snapshot.
Exactly. Pay attention to that baseline, because over the next few minutes, we're going to completely deconstruct it.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've all been given that universal advice at some point, right? Like, take a deep breath when you're stressed or panicked.
Oh yeah, constantly.
It just feels so intuitive. But as we dig into this source material, it seems like almost every instinct we have regarding how we breathe might actually be hurting us. And to figure out why, we apparently have to rewind the clock way, way back.
We really can't talk about fixing our breathing until we establish how our actual physical anatomy became so profoundly compromised in the first place.
Right.
To understand this, we look at the work of Dr. Mariana Evans. She is an orthodontist and researcher who spent time examining ancient human skulls from this thing called the Morton Collection.
And these are specimens dating back hundreds, even thousands of years, right? Like pre-industrial, pre-agriculture.
Exactly. And when she examined these ancient skulls, she found this structural consistency that is almost non-existent today.
What kind of consistency?
Well, every single one of these skulls featured enormous forward-facing jaws. They had massive wide airways and perfectly straight teeth. Yeah, these are people who obviously never saw a dentist, never had braces, never got their wisdom teeth removed, yet their mouths were structurally flawless.
Which is wild when you look at us today. I mean, 90% of modern children have some kind of deformity in their mouths and noses.
It's a huge percentage.
Out of the 5,400 species of mammals on this planet, humans are the only ones that routinely suffer from crooked teeth, or what dentists call malocclusion. Like, my dogs don't need braces. Wild animals don't have impacted teeth. We are uniquely messed up.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the question immediately becomes, why would evolution do this to us? Why would natural selection favor a physical trait that makes us sicker and actually restricts our airflow?
Right, it seems so backward.
It does. But the answer lies in an evolutionary trade-off that occurred about 800,000 years ago, when our ancestors started doing something truly revolutionary. They learned to process, mash, and eventually cook their food.
Cooking literally changed the entire trajectory of the human race.
Because cooking food externalizes digestion. So it takes significantly less caloric energy for your body to break down a cooked piece of meat than raw forage.
Makes sense.
Right, so suddenly, early humans had this massive surplus of energy. And the body used that surplus to grow our brains exponentially. Our brains increased in size by about 50%. But here's the catch. That massive new brain needed physical space inside the skull.
So it pushed outward.
Well, it pushed forward and downward. As the brain expanded, it quite literally squashed our faces inward. It took the prominent snouts of our ancestors and compressed them into the flat faces and protruding noses we have today. And in the process, it drastically shrank our sinus cavities and narrowed our mouths.
Wait, as you described that, I'm just picturing an old computer. So the invention of cooking was essentially a biological software update that gave us a massive new processor, right? Our big brain.
I like that analogy.
But it came with a terrible hardware bug that squashed our airways. Like, we traded optimal breathing for optimal thinking. Are you saying evolution is actively making us sicker?
Anthropologists actually have a term for it, dysevolution. We are passing down traits that are detrimental to our physical health. And that hardware bug came with a second, equally dangerous glitch. As we developed vocal communication and language, our larynx, the voice box, dropped lower in the throat compared to other primates.
To give us a wider range of sounds for speech.
Precisely. It allows us to form complex vowels and consonants. But dropping the larynx created a dangerous, unsupported, empty gap at the back of the mouth.
That sounds bad.
Because of that gap, humans are uniquely prone to choking on our food. Even worse, when we lie down to sleep and our muscles relax, the soft tissues of the palate and the tongue collapse backward into that empty space, completely sealing off the airway.
Which is the mechanical reality of snoring and obstructive sleep apnea. You're literally choking on your own collapsed anatomy.
Right. And because evolution squashed our nasal passages and made them so narrow, any slight inflammation or allergy blocks them entirely.
Right, you get a cold and suddenly you can't breathe.
Exactly. This forces the body to deploy a terrible secondary coping mechanism just to keep us alive, which is that we open our mouths.
And this is where the science gets truly horrifying. If anyone listening is a chronic mouth breather or wakes up with a dry mouth every morning, you need to hear this. The physical toll of bypassing the nose is immediate and severe.
To prove exactly how severe, there was a landmark experiment conducted at Stanford University by Dr. Jayakar Nayak.
This is the one with James Nestor, right?
Yes, the author of our source material, James Nestor, alongside a breathing researcher named Anders Olsen, volunteered to be human guinea pigs. They went into the clinic and had the insides of their noses completely plugged with silicone.
Yikes.
And then taped shut over the nostrils. For 10 straight days, they were forced into 100% mouth breathing.
I cannot even imagine the claustrophobia of that, like just constant panic.
The psychological toll was awful, but the physiological collapse was just stunning. Keep in mind, these were healthy guys. But within days of breathing exclusively through their mouths, their blood pressure spiked so violently they both entered stage 1 hypertension, and their heart rate variability absolutely plummeted.
Let's pause on that because heart rate variability, or HRV, is crucial. That measures the variation in time between your heartbeats, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a prime indicator of your nervous system's flexibility. So when your HRV plummets, it means your body is locked in a constant state of fight or flight panic. It basically cannot relax.
Exactly. And that panic carried right into the night. Before the experiment, Nestor was a very mild snorer. Within a few days of mouth breathing, his snoring increased by 4,820%.
That is insane. Over 4,000%.
Yep. Both men developed severe obstructive sleep apnea. Their airways were collapsing, their blood oxygen levels were dropping, and their brains were constantly jarring them awake to keep them from suffocating.
Which triggers a terrifying domino effect. And this actually blows my mind because it perfectly explains something so many people struggle with, which is waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I always assumed that was just about drinking too much water before bed.
A lot of people think that, but it's actually a hormonal failure caused by bad breathing. When you breathe through your mouth at night, you lose about 40% more moisture just through evaporation.
You are literally exhaling your hydration.
Exactly. So you would assume your body would hoard whatever water is left, reducing your need to urinate.
But the opposite happens.
Right. Because sleep apnea is constantly pulling you out of deep sleep to gasp for air. Your brain never reaches the deepest, most restorative stages of the sleep cycle.
Okay.
And it is only during those very specific deep sleep stages that your pituitary gland secretes a hormone called vasopressin.
What does vasopressin do?
It's the chemical messenger that tells your kidneys to stop filtering out fluid and start storing water for the night.
Oh. So without deep sleep, the vasopressin signal never gets sent. Your kidneys just keep processing fluid like it's the middle of the afternoon.
Yes. That's why chronic mouth breathers wake up constantly needing to urinate, yet they feel completely dehydrated and parched.
That makes so much sense.
The body's entire fluid regulation system breaks down simply because the mouth is open. And if you sustain this for years, it actually changes your physical structure.
like physically alters your face.
Yeah. In the 1970s, a researcher named Dr. Egil Harvold forced a group of rhesus monkeys to mouth breathe by blocking their nasal passages with silicone plugs. Over a matter of months, the physical structure of their faces collapsed.
Oh, that's terrible.
Their skulls grew longer, their jaws hung slack, and their perfectly straight teeth grew in crooked and crowded.
If it is so incredibly destructive to our heart, our sleep, and our actual bone structure, why does the body even have it as an option? I mean, as you were talking, I realized it's exactly like the spare tire in the trunk of a car.
That's a good way to put it.
It's there for an emergency to keep you from suffocating if your nose gets blocked by an infection, but you aren't supposed to drive on a spare tire for 40 years. It will completely destroy the alignment of the car.
This raises an important question. If the mouth is just a flawed emergency backup, what makes the nose so biologically superior? Like, what is happening inside there?
Here's where it gets really interesting. The inside of the nose is not just a hollow tube.
Not at all. Air enters the nose and immediately hits the turbinate. These are 6 maze-like spongy bones that act as an incredibly advanced HVAC system. As air winds through these narrow channels, it gets filtered by tiny hairs called cilia, heated up to exactly body temperature, and heavily moisturized before it is ever allowed to enter the delicate tissue of the lungs.
But the truly wild part is what lines those turbinates. The interior of the nose is covered in erectile tissue. It is literally the exact same biological tissue found in the human genitals.
And just like the genitals, this tissue is designed to engorge with blood. It responds to stimulation, to stress, and to the environment.
That is just crazy to think about.
But in the nose, it operates on an unconscious pulsing rhythm, creating what scientists call nasal cycles.
Right.
If you pay close attention throughout the day, you'll notice that you are rarely breathing equally out of both nostrils. One side will engorge with blood and partially swell shut, forcing the other nostril to do the heavy lifting.
And every few hours, they seamlessly switch back and forth. Breathing heavily through the right nostril acts as a biological gas pedal, right? It activates the sympathetic nervous system, it increases your heart rate, pushes blood pressure up, and actually raises your core body temperature.
It prepares you for action. Conversely, the left nostril is the body's braking system. It is heavily tied to the parasympathetic nervous system. When the left nostril takes over, it cools the body down, lowers blood pressure, reduces anxiety, and actually stimulates blood flow to the right hemisphere of the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the creative side.
Exactly, the side of the brain associated with creative thought and emotional processing. Your body is constantly shifting gears between the left and right nostrils to maintain physiological balance.
And what's amazing is that human beings used to know this intuitively. We didn't need functional MRI machines to tell us that nasal breathing was vital. There was this researcher in the 1830s named George Catlin.
Oh yeah, his work is fascinating.
Yeah. He traveled the American West, living with 50 different Native American tribes, and he documented his absolute shock at their health.
I was blown away.
He described people with Herculean statures, perfectly straight, piano key teeth, and virtually zero chronic respiratory disease. He asked them what their secret was, and they told him it was the great secret of life.
Which was?
It was strict, militant nasal breathing.
It was a deeply ingrained cultural practice for them. Mothers would stand over their sleeping infants and gently pinch their lips shut to train the habit from birth. They intuitively understood that inhaling dry, unfiltered air through the mouth sapped the body of strength and invited disease.
So, if someone listening right now is sitting at their desk realizing they are a mouth breather, especially at night, how do we mimic that tribal wisdom today?
Well, the source material suggests something incredibly jarring, which is sleep tape.
Sleep tape.
You literally take a small piece of porous surgical tape, about the size of a postage stamp, and place it vertically over the center of your lips right before you go to bed.
I imagine the immediate reaction from most people is that taping your mouth shut sounds absolutely terrifying.
Oh, completely.
Right. Isn't it incredibly claustrophobic? But it's not like duct tape across a hostage's face. It's just a gentle reminder for the jaw to stay shut.
Exactly. It's very light.
I like to think of it as a biological retainer for your airway. Like putting training wheels on your respiratory system while you sleep to force it back into its natural alignment.
That's a great analogy.
And the benefits are absurd. By forcing nasal breathing, you boost the production of a molecule called nitric oxide sixfold, which dilates blood vessels and increases oxygen absorption in the lungs by 18%.
So we've fixed the entryway, we've taped the mouth shut, engaged the turbinates, and optimized the air coming in.
Right.
But what happens once that perfectly filtered heated air actually reaches the lungs? And does the physical size of your lungs actually dictate your health?
This was the biggest surprise for me. The answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah, it's huge.
There's this massive 70-year longitudinal research project called the Framingham Study. Researchers tracked multiple generations of people to find out what predicted longevity.
And what did they find?
They found that the single greatest indicator of a person's lifespan wasn't their genetics, it wasn't their diet, it wasn't even how much they jogged, it was their lung capacity. Larger, more efficient lungs equaled a longer life. Period.
Which challenged a major pillar of Western medicine. For a very long time, doctors believed lung capacity was totally static.
Like you're just stuck with what you have.
Right. You were born with a certain size, and after your 20s, the tissue just degraded as you aged. But that is fundamentally false. The lungs are highly malleable.
Wow.
We see the first glimpse of this with a woman named Katharina Schroth in the early 1900s. As a teenager, she was diagnosed with severe scoliosis. Her spine was twisting so badly, doctors told her she'd be confined to a wheelchair for life.
That's devastating.
But she noticed that lungs function similarly to balloons. She hypothesized that if she could learn to expand her lungs forcefully enough into specific areas of her chest, the internal pneumatic pressure could literally push her skeletal structure back into alignment.
She invented a technique called orthopedic breathing and completely cured her own incurable scoliosis.
That's amazing.
She avoided the wheelchair entirely and spent the rest of her life teaching this method, straightening the spines of patients that traditional doctors had completely given up on.
What's fascinating here is the paradigm shift. Schroth proved that we can physically manipulate our internal volume. But it wasn't until the 1940s that a man named Carl Stuff shifted the paradigm even further.
And Stuff wasn't a doctor or a physiologist, right?
No, he was a choir conductor.
Wait, you're telling me an untrained choir conductor revolutionized pulmonary medicine?
Yes, exactly. Because he trained singers, he understood diaphragmatic control better than most physicians. He realized that people suffering from severe respiratory problems weren't actually struggling to get air in. They were struggling to get stale air out.
Wait, explain that mechanism, because when we picture someone with a lung disease, we picture them gasping for breath, trying to inhale.
And that's exactly what doctors thought too. In the 1950s, Stuff was invited to VA hospitals to observe emphysema patients.
Okay.
These were men who were bedridden, tethered to oxygen tanks, essentially waiting to die. The doctors had propped their beds up at angles to help them gasp and inhale more air.
But Stuff saw something different.
Stuff looked at them and realized the treatment was entirely backward. Emphysema destroys the lung's elasticity, meaning these patients had lost the ability to exhale fully. Their lungs were already hyperinflated, packed with stale, toxic air. When they gasped, they were just taking tiny, panicked sips of oxygen on top of lungs that were already full.
So what did he do?
He started manually massaging their chests and rib cages. He verbally coached them, teaching them to fully engage their diaphragm, the massive muscle sitting like an umbrella under the lungs, to forcefully squeeze out every single molecule of stale air.
He retrained them to exhale.
And the results were miraculous. Bedridden patients who were written off as terminal were suddenly walking the halls. Men who needed 24/7 oxygen were going hours, even days, without it.
It's as if we've all been throwing a baseball our entire lives using only the flick of our wrist. And Stuff comes along and says, hey, you actually have an entire shoulder, torso, and set of legs to put into this throw.
That's exactly it.
Most of us are only using maybe 10% of our diaphragmatic range. We take these shallow chest breaths, but Stuff proved that the exhale is the actual engine of respiration.
He really did. He even took this exact same technique to the 1968 U.S. Olympic track team. He taught elite sprinters to focus on the full exhale rather than rapid, shallow gasps.
And they went on to win 12 medals.
Yep, 12 medals and set 5 world records without using any supplemental oxygen, which was unheard of at those high altitudes.
It completely revolutionized our understanding of athletic endurance. Which brings us to the final and perhaps most counterintuitive piece of the puzzle. We have optimized the entryway with the nose. We have optimized the engine by engaging the diaphragm for a full exhale. But none of that matters if the engine is running at the wrong RPM. Like, how fast should we actually be breathing?
Well, if you're listening right now, sitting at your desk or driving, You are likely taking between 12 to 20 breaths a minute.
And the research is crystal clear on this. That is way, way too much. We are a society of chronic overbreathers.
To understand why breathing less is actually superior, we have to dismantle a massive myth about carbon dioxide.
The CO2 myth.
Yeah, we're taught from grade school a very simple binary narrative. Oxygen is the heroic life giver, and carbon dioxide is the toxic waste product we must expel.
Good versus evil.
Exactly. But a Danish physiologist named Christian Bohr discovered something called the Bohr effect, which proves that narrative is totally incomplete. It turns out carbon dioxide is the chemical key that physically unlocks oxygen from your red blood cells.
As you're explaining that lock and key, I'm just picturing a cruise ship. Imagine your bloodstream is the ocean, and the red blood cells are the cruise ships. The oxygen molecules are the passengers.
Okay, I see where this is going.
But carbon dioxide is the gangway. It's the ramp. If you don't have enough CO2 in your blood to signal that a muscle or an organ needs fuel, the ship pulls into the dock, but the passengers physically cannot get off. All the pure oxygen you want, you can breathe as fast as you can, but without CO2 acting as the gangway, that oxygen stays trapped inside the red blood cells and your tissues are literally starving.
That is precisely what happens when we panic, hyperventilate, or just take too many shallow breaths throughout the day. We overventilate and purge too much carbon dioxide from our system.
Which starves our cells.
Yes. A scientist named Yandel Henderson proved this with some rather grim experiments on dogs. He put them on mechanical ventilators and pumped air into their lungs rapidly.
To simulate hyperventilation.
Right. The rapid breathing depleted their CO2 levels entirely. Because the CO2 was gone, the oxygen couldn't release into their tissues, and the dogs died of asphyxiation while being pumped full of oxygen.
Wow, that's wild.
But when he slowed the ventilators down, allowing CO2 levels to rise naturally, the oxygen was finally delivered and the dogs fully recovered.
And speaking of carbon dioxide, there is this incredibly fun fact from the source material that completely blew my mind.
Oh, the weight loss thing.
Yes. If you've ever wondered where physical fat actually goes when you lose weight, you don't sweat it out in the sauna, you don't burn it up into pure heat energy, and you don't excrete it. You exhale it.
Yeah, human fat is mostly made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. When your body metabolizes it, it breaks down into water and CO2.
For every 10 pounds of fat you lose, 8.5 pounds is exhaled straight out of your lungs as carbon dioxide.
It is incredible. The lungs are literally the weight-regulating exhaust system of the body.
So knowing that we desperately need a healthy level of CO2 to unlock our oxygen, and knowing we need to slow our breathing down to let that CO2 build up, what is the optimal rate?
Researchers hooked subjects up to monitors and tested different respiratory rates to find the peak efficiency of the human body. And they found a universal sweet spot.
What is it?
It is exactly 5.5 breaths per minute. That breaks down to a 5.5-second inhale, followed by a 5.5-second exhale.
And this wasn't just a clinical laboratory discovery. When scientists looked at people breathing at exactly this 5.5 rate, they realized it perfectly matched the rhythm of ancient spiritual practices from all over the globe.
It's spooky how perfectly it lines up.
Right. If you recite the traditional Catholic rosary cycle, it takes exactly 5.5 breaths a minute. The famous Buddhist chant, Om Mani Padme Hum, 5.5 breaths a minute, Kundalini yoga chants, Jain mantras, they all naturally lock the practitioner into this exact same rhythm.
Because when you breathe at a rate of 5.5 breaths per minute, your heart rate, your blood pressure, and your nervous system all align into a state of peak coherence.
Everything just syncs up.
Exactly. The systems sync up. It is the absolute most efficient way for the human machine to idle. The ancients discovered this state of physical grace through prayer and intuition, and modern science merely verified it with electrocardiograms.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring all these threads together. Evolution handed us a really raw deal. Our massive brains squashed our airways, dropped our voice boxes, and made us highly susceptible to choking and sleep apnea.
It really did.
But we are not helpless victims of our anatomy. By intentionally sealing our lips, even using tape at night, and breathing exclusively through our incredible heavily filtered noses, we fix the entryway. By exercising our diaphragms to fully squeeze out stale air, we fix the engine. Finally, by slowing our respiratory rate down to 5.5 breaths per minute, we fix the RPMs. We can literally reclaim our nervous system, our sleep qualities, and our longevity.
It does require conscious, deliberate effort at first to overcome decades of bad habits. But eventually the body adapts, and it becomes an unconscious, protective habit.
So right now, as you're listening to this, close your mouth, relax your jaw, Take a slow 5.5-second breath in through your nose. Feel those turbinates filtering and warming the air.
And then let it out, slowly and completely, using your stomach and diaphragm to squeeze out that last bit of stale air.
Exactly.
We've seen today that breathing, something we generally dismiss as a passive, unconscious background process, has the power to literally alter the bone structure of our faces. It can cure spinal deformities, and it can profoundly change our brain chemistry and nervous system.
It's incredibly powerful.
It really makes you wonder, what other automatic bodily functions like our digestion, our daily posture, or even our heartbeat are we completely mismanaging right now simply because we've lost touch with the ancient instruction manual on how to be human?
You are going to take 670 million breaths in your lifetime, and for a lot of us, we've been doing it the hard way this whole time. But the amazing part of this deep dive is realizing that your very next breath is an opportunity to start doing it right.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.